Hello, everybody. My name is Dratnos, and welcome to episode 27 of the Titanforge podcast. Joining me, as always, is Tettles.
Hello. I know I'm no longer on the screen currently, and I know I'm a big source of entertainment for the show, but we're making it work.
And Trell.
Hello. I'm a medium source of entertainment for the show, and I'm also not on camera.
Yes, so this week we are, we have some issues. We have some slight issues with Discord being down, which means that there are no video feeds of us three for those, watching on Twitch or YouTube. We are not there, unfortunately. But the good news is that we have Battle.net in-game voice chat, and we are using Battle.net voice chat, and that is getting us through today. So
this is the first time I've ever opened it.
Yes, for anybody who's ever doubted Blizzard Battle.net voice chat, it's saving our butts here today.
We did try Skype, and we have been streaming for the past 20 to 25ish minutes. Skype is absolutely not the play. Blizzard Battle.net in-game voice is far superior.
Yes. Wait, can you guys still hear me? Man, I just closed Battle.net in-game voice. I thought it was an unnecessary window, but I needed that window to stay open. Okay, let me rejoin this stupid thing.
That noise when he went offline.
Man.
What did you do?
Man, I closed a window that I didn't think was important. It was important, okay? It was an important window.
Drop out of the call?
I thought it was just a stupid superfluous window, and I thought I could close it down to, streamline things, but that was an important window to keep open. Battle.net just closes. It doesn't care. All right, so this week's episode, we are going to talk about dungeon trash and pathing in Freehold, Temple, Underrot, the Motherlode, and Tol Dagor. And that is the show for this week. We'll do skips and stuff next time. Speaking of next time, as the holidays approach us, there is some uncertainty in our schedule still. We are planning to record on the 14th, so that's next weekend, and have that episode, of course, come out on the audio feeds and everything on the 15th. So that is planned to happen. But after that, we may miss 1 or even possibly 2 weeks. We may have some other content to fill there, but those 2 Saturdays fall right in the middle of holiday season where one or more of us may be traveling at any given time. So there may be a 2-week holiday hiatus from us. Again, we'll try to come up with something to bridge the gap, but we'll see what we're able to do as the holidays do approach. Okay, let's briefly mention Twitter and stuff. We do have a Twitter at Titanforge WoW, where we tweet the show topics every week and we take questions there. We also have a Discord when Discord is working, but right now Discord is not working, so that's unfortunate. Hopefully by the time you're listening to this, if you're on YouTube or one of the other platforms, that's back. And that will, of course, be in the description. And we have a Patreon, patreon.com/Titanforge, where you can help support the show. Our most powerful supporters are Never Nude, Ahar of US Proudmoore, Paul, now also of US Proudmoore, King of Skills, VTech, Rock, Zuko, Azza, Ja, Adestria, Falcao, who says Khalifa D is in, Drunk Swede from Legion of Lemmings Argent Dawn EU, Dratnos' Dino Pillow, Actually Tootsie, who says hi Steve, and Heltari. So thanks to all of you for
pillow?
My Dino Pillow is now apparently a patron, so you love to hear it. Okay.
S-tier pillow.
And, before we start with our main topic, we also have our tip of the week segment. My tip of the week is that the Mechagon and Nazjatar rep essences are getting cheaper in terms of the amount of spare crates that they need, and they're going to require less rep. You're only going to need Revered for rank 3. So if you're working on alt essences for next patch, those are ones that you don't need to work on as hard, and you should instead prio the other stuff. Trell, what is your tip of the week?
So just follow up on Dratnos' tip. I'm planning to save up about 28 crates on most of my alt tanks so that I get both Purification rank 3 and Null rank 3 just being revered as soon as the patch drops, which is ideal.
That is definitely ideal. I'm going to turn you up as well. Yes.
Yeah, that would help. Okay, so my tip of the week is Druids can use a potion called Potion of Sneaking, I believe. Sneaking potion. That's
Sneaking
what it's actually
potion,
called.
yeah.
It is sneaking potion, yes.
And what that does is it allows the druid to have rogue stealth. The druids normally have pretty weak stealth, and they can be detected at a much easier range than rogues can. Like rogues can pretty much walk right by a mob, and druids will get seen if they do that without being careful. So these potions can help you get back to your group if you wipe and have to run back, or if you're the one that needs to get ahead in some way without a rogue.
Yeah, this is extremely useful actually to get access to a bunch of to help you do a bunch of different skips where normally you'll get seen by mobs as a druid. Great tip. Okay, Tettles, what is your clip of the week?
All right, so we have a clip from twitch.tv/Dratnos.
Okay, yeah, actually, we can just fire it up and watch it. Here. This one's called Dratnos Assassinates the Group. Man, this is a good one, actually.
Maybe
So,
slash
for those of you who don't know,
Assassin
Spark
a little
Chandler,
bit.
whenever he's at the end of the bridge, he is casting those lightning balls down the gauntlet area. And if you are
Okay.
not a very kind individual, you can use your distract, or you could actually just like stealth and stealth distract this mob to where you mess up those orbs and you
Yeah. We were ready to watch the clip?
yeah
Okay, here we go.
shenanigans ensues.
Maybe slash sit.
Do you guys
just
want to see
turn
me
around a
assassinate
little
the group?
bit.
Do you
Do
guys
a
want to see me
little
assassinate
swirl.
the group here?
You don't know.
Dude, check
You
this
wanna go
out.
fast or
Check
go
this out.
fast?
This is gonna kill somebody. This is gonna kill
Free.
somebody. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
This has actually
Lord
happened to
knows
me
I
before.
wasn't gonna use it.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Wait, who trolled you?
Wow, you got nerfed, man.
You got nerfed. What happened?
Oh, I think morning.
Oh shit! No.
So he distracts the mob and
Yeah.
casts, and it causes the lightning balls to cast toward the group instead of away.
Yeah.
Or down in a straight line.
This is
That's so troll. That's so troll drafts, by the way.
is extremely toxic. It was only a 21 though. So it was a 21 that was like we had 15 minutes after at that point, so we were definitely going to win, but definitely not going to two chest. Yeah. Second tip of the week. It is a good tip. Yeah. The big tip I think from this also is to avoid doing this accidentally in the MDI. That's an important thing to try and avoid
happen
doing.
to a team.
It did. Yeah, it happened to Method
That
NA.
happened to JB, I think.
Yeah, the problem
remember
was JB accidentally stealth distracted it, I think. He walked too close. So actually Sneaking
Yes,
Potion would have helped him
that's
as well. If he had Sneaking Potion on, that also wouldn't have happened. So a kind of cool little combo between our tips there. All right, let's start off by talking about Tol Dagor. Tol Dagor is our first dungeon of this week where we're going to talk about the trash and the pathing and stuff. Again, if you're interested in boss tips or the other dungeons trash tips, those are 2 episodes ago and 1 episode ago, respectively. And next week, we are planning to do skips. We're planning to talk just about how to execute a bunch of different skips. So, without further ado, let's start with Tol Dagor. We have the first pull, the beach pull with the crabs and crocs, and Trell as the tank. What are you thinking about when looking at all the different crabs and stuff at the start of Tol Dagor?
This pull is pretty special to me, and I'm sure lots of other tanks that played in Legion, because this is like the only pull that's left that was very similar to lots of Legion-like pulls, where you had to carefully gather a ton of mobs, group them up, and get through it without dying. And so, as you see, I'm taking as little physical damage as possible. I did this one pretty well. I think I only took 1 melee until they got to me. And that's pretty ideal. You don't want to take more than 1 melee. If you're doing a high key, especially on fort, you'll probably die as a tank while you're on your mount.
Yeah, this is something where having a slow in your group is pretty important. You can always have people zone out and zone back in to play a spec that has a slow. So rogues can go outlaw can go assassination instead of outlaw. Mages can go frost instead of fire. Those are both good options to get like a consistent slow for this pull, and that makes it a lot
What do you
easier.
actually think about pulling the parasites during the pull? Because I saw you guys actually grab them there, but in general, I think the parasites during the pack is actually so bad.
This time it was executed really well. I agree with you. It's very dangerous to do that. But I had a plan ready, and I picked him up mid-pull and got aggro just fine this time.
Yeah.
But-
If you're also playing with a Prot Warrior tank, you can actually use Conflict and Strife Major to spam root these guys. And
Yeah, that's
keep them
really
roofed
good.
up.
Conflict
It
and
is
Strife
very
Major for
strong.
Prot Warrior is an extremely useful tip for honestly, Conflict and Strife Major for Prot Warrior. The more I've seen it played, the more I'm just kind of convinced it's the best thing you can be doing. There's just so many good pieces, so many times it can save you from huge amounts of damage. Just anytime you're fighting a Tides Emissary as well, you can just keep clapping it away from you and not actually get hit by it very much. And that's really nice.
I mean, in addition to that, just the concept of it keeping the pack grouped up as much as possible while kiting away from trash is a pretty undervalued, just like metric, just in general.
I think another thing to mention as a tank here is it's very important. Like the moment when all the mobs got to me, not only is it like a huge fortified pole and they do lots of damage. Oh, it's tyrannical actually.
Yeah,
well,
this is Rage Necrotic Tyrannical. Affix is active.
I use every cooldown I have and the healer's external just to tank the mobs for like 4 seconds max, because I need to keep them still and hopefully get like 2 keg smashes in. So I keg smash all the mobs like as soon as they get to me with 3 defensives on me, and then I run away and cast my second keg smash, and that's really important for threat. And most tanks have a similar system, but it's just incredible and kind of unknown that maybe sometimes you have to use 3 defensives at once just to survive a 4-second damage window.
Yeah, when you're fighting this many mobs, for some reason the video is now being scuffed, but such is life. Okay, let's talk about the next section of Tol Dagor that we want to talk about, which is the cage buffs. Hopefully I can get this video. Okay, yeah, nice. So this is a video I made a long time ago called How to Get Every Buff in Tol Dagor, which explains how to get every buff in Tol Dagor. This is something that...
Holy shit.
I know. Tol Dagor Rogue Tricks is even part of the title. So here is how you can open all the cages. I'll just play this little video. All the different cages are possible to be opened without getting detected by the mobs patrolling through the bridge. Obviously, these ones are pretty easy on the side here. One thing to note is there are hostile mobs in these cages, so if you open them, you have to make sure to not run next to them for a little while. Man, my face just full screen for a bit there. I was not good at making videos back then. I just like full screen my face for a second. Anyways, this one you can open by clicking through the wall here, which is really nice. That's an important tip, especially when the void is there. When the void is on this side, that is the way to open that cage very easily. And there can also be a void on the other side, but even then you can still do what you're about to see here. Like if you distract that mid pack, or nowadays it's kind of common to actually pull that thug, you can still open all of these cages without getting in range of that void. You just have to make sure to stay max range away from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you would not be able to walk here with the void in that corner.
So on Enchanted Emissary weeks, the most recent week that we had, not this current week, but the most recent one, there is a void that is in that corner. And so a lot of groups will actually elect to pull the thug striker and then the two strikers here, even. Yeah, the 2 strikers there, and then one of the pad foots through the wall just to make sure that you have count later on in the dungeon. And the reason for that being is because it makes it super easy for your rogue to be able to get all the buffs out of the cages. But you also can just do it natively without pulling this thug whenever there is that void there. It does occasionally require some vanish shenanigans and requires you to be fast. I know there's also some stuff you can do with like Lightfoot potions, make it to where you're significantly quicker as you run by some of the mobs with True Sight. So there's a bunch of different things you can do. It also just kind of depends on where the buffs are.
Yes, yeah. You can still open all of these cages without getting in combat and with wherever the voids are. It is still possible to do that, but voids do make it take longer, and it is often better for time purposes to just pull packs as the group. Like if it's not too bad for your route, this is a good place to pull trash now. It also, like, it used to be really bad to pull trash here because you could just kill infinite things with cannons. But now that you can't do that, it's a lot less important to, skip as much trash as possible on your way up. It's worth noting that it's really important to get these buffs on Tyrannical, like to survive Korgus. You want
the stamina buff's actually very, very important.
Stam is really important. Attack power and int are good for damage, and wisdom helps your healer. Wisdom is the least important of them, I'd say, but it's still really good.
I would actually argue that wisdom is fairly important. It's just undervalued because people just see it as mana regen, where it actually gives a pretty significant amount of HP regen.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. It's definitely good, but if you had to pick one to drop, I'd say that's probably the one to not get.
I would drop one of the damage ones, honestly.
Okay.
Damage is relatively unimportant inside of that dungeon just because of how much time the cannons can. Yeah, and the timer is like really, really lenient. So I would probably drop one of the damage if I had to really pick.
Okay, let's talk about the cannon section here. If I can get that on screen, hang on.
Yeah, I don't think there's too much to really talk about like the C speakers and the raiders and stuff like that. C speakers just kind of kick Salt Blast and purge Watery Dome. It's nothing really. Yeah,
sometimes there can be an annoying tides there. One strategy that I think is good is to pull it, like taunt the tides out and then CC whatever mobs that were next to it and were unCCable. Because especially casters will stand still for a bit and you can just hit them with the CC once they're away from the tides. That's the strat I recommend when you have annoying tides next to like 2 death speaker or C speakers and you can't shroud them. Okay, let's show the cannon section now. So this is after you've killed the first set of trash out there in the cannon area. You're now looking to actually start doing a cannon pull. So you've cleared some trash here. Some people like to use the cannons to kill the first couple mobs out there. But Trell, you guys are a fan of like a big pull that involves a bunch of different mobs here. So you and the Demon Hunter are both going in here and grabbing a bunch of different trash. You got hit by the explosion there, but still lived from the barrel. Nice.
I shouldn't have done that.
And a bunch of different trash here. And now you have a Ring of Frost here, grouping everything up outside by the cannon area. Ring of Frost, extremely powerful for this. If you don't have a mage, there are other class abilities that are like it, but it's uniquely powerful.
Out of line of sight of me, and they can't do anything to me during that ring. Like all of them are stuck there, unable to cast, waiting for the others to catch up. Then
Ring of Peace and Ursul's Vortex are coming in here. This comp is pretty ideal for this. You have basically every piece of mob control that anybody might want. So now you're just wait. A really nice thing coming out from Morning here is just waiting for everything to group up before shooting again.
He knows that I'm grouping the mobs on the next corner. Right where I am, they're all going to stop and cast on that. Each LOS spot, they'll do the same thing. So you can use one of like 7 LOS spots. See, now I'm going to the next one as a tank. You never want to actually face tank these mobs. They're very overtuned.
Yeah.
Did you know that you actually need the Demon Hunter debuff to where these guys will die in less shots?
Yeah, you want Chaos Brand to kill them in an extra shot? Yes. That's very good.
And have an extra cannon shot after this pull if you do it with the Demon Hunter.
I'm surprised that you guys... Okay, so even though this is like a few weeks back, I'm still surprised that you guys went that big with this cannon.
Yeah, this was Necrotic Week as well, which... This is actually the same affix combo that's on live right now, but last time we got it, so this is from September. Extremely powerful, though.
What exactly do you think about doing a pull like that where you're getting all of the mobs out of the out of that upper caged in area and then pulling them outside as opposed to just getting the walkway by itself? Because I think what we saw this most recent push week is people were just solely playing the walkway. Do you think it's because this is on like I think it's like a Tides heavy week. This is definitely not an Enchanted week.
It's Void Week, actually.
This is Void.
Yeah,
this was 12 weeks ago.
Void Week in Tol Dagor is nice because there are actually less voids than Tides Week. It's
I
like
personally
a weird
think
dungeon.
Per Tettle's question, pulling large pulls with the cannons and skipping others inside is faster if you have a confident way of doing it like we do with only 5 shots. It was obviously the way to go in the MDI on 18s, and I think it's still the way to go on live if you can do it consistently. It helps a lot that I'm a Brewmaster. I can control all this pretty much by myself. Like Ring of Frost and Typhoon and Vortex make it a lot easier, but I can almost do this all by myself because of my extreme mobility and my 2 AoE stops.
Okay, so would you recommend this for other people to do?
I mean, I think Prop Warrior can also do like Conflict and Strife Major, also really good for keeping these things or for getting them unstaggered and grouped up.
It is if you can face tank all the damage.
Well, you don't even have to face tank the damage though. You can keep clapping and the close stuff can stay away from you.
Yeah, you could weasel your way through it for sure.
And they could spell reflect the cannon shot to kill the rogue.
To kill the rogue, yeah, that is an interaction that does happen. Okay, but yeah, so this is like the most stuff that you can reasonably kill with cannons, like 3 or 4 packs with each. If you have a really high control group, most groups are not going to do this much cannon work. They'll do less than 3 or 4 packs with cannons.
I would not recommend my strat to just a new group. Period.
Do you have MDT open right now, Dratnos?
No, I do not.
Chance? Okay, so in general, groups will actually pull. So they'll CC the 2 mobs that are sitting in front of the first cannon. And then they'll like knock that one that's sitting on the lip. They'll just like knock it off, and then they'll run down the walkway, grab both of those 2 packs, and pull them all the way back to where those 2 mobs are still sitting there CC using like a paralysis, a blind, a sap, some stuff like that, basically. And then they'll group them all up and kill only those mobs with the cannon shots. They won't really kill anything else. Obviously, this is like week dependent. If there's like a void that's sitting during Void Week, there's like a void that's like sitting right next to that cannon.
That's Tides Week, actually. Yeah, you have to. I think, or maybe it's Void Week. Yeah, no, that you might be right.
Yeah.
I think that is Void Week. Yeah, you always just focus down the Void. That one there.
Okay. So whenever there's Void Week, you just kill the Void with the 2 guys, and then you just do the 2 walkway packs by themselves. But during the Tides Week, there's actually a Tides in the pack, and you can use Demon Hunter. If you have a Moonkin can also taunt it and just run around with the Tides for a little bit, because you actually do not want the Tides in the pack because it makes it really challenging to set up CC. So utilizing your DPS to be able to like taunt and run away with the Tides is pretty important there.
Yeah. Other useful abilities for this: trees from a balanced druid are really good for holding the mobs in place for a little bit. I think there are some other class abilities that are pretty good for here, but I think those are binding
Conflict
shot,
and Strife major.
Yeah, binding shot really
binding
good.
Shot.
So yeah, a lot of specs have some kind of tool that helps this.
I'd argue Vengeance Simulators.
Oh yeah,
Sigil
Sigil of Change, Sigil of Misery, and Sigil of Silence, all big here actually.
Gorfien's Grasp.
Yeah, Gorfien's Grasp, massive Gorfien's Grasp here, and just Death Grips in general is nice. And Death and Decay Slow is also really good. The like 90% snare at the start. So
Grip of the Dead.
Yeah,
good.
Lots of really good tools for that cannon section. Gorfien's Grasp. Okay, one problem with Gorfien's Grasp, is that you have to live the pull. That's toxic.
Well, you could bring 2 tanks. It's Tol Dagor.
True. That is, I guess,
pressing a utility button instead of Death Strike might mean you die in that GCD, so you got to be really careful as Blood DK.
Okay, yeah. So basically, it's really important to make sure you never wipe in that section, because if you wipe after using a cannon shot and those mobs reset, you're dead. That usually kills the keystone. So often you can look at the timer and see how much time you've got, and if you've got a lot of time, you can pull a little bit more conservatively there and fight some of those packs by hand. But if you're low on time, then you do have to go big and kill a bunch of stuff with cannons. And also, I guess my main tip as a rogue for people shooting cannons is, first of all, you can like zoom in on your camera, and that can help you get a more accurate shot. And second of all, if you're not sure whether you should take the shot yet, you should wait. You should almost always wait until you have the good shot, and don't fire it off too early, because if you shoot and hit half the people, that's really bad. So yeah, I'd say patience is really important for your rogue on those cannons.
Speaking of which, I think it's fairly common knowledge at this point that you can actually use Tricks of the Trade on a tank, and it does not consume
break
the tricks.
So
it doesn't consume the tricks.
You can have full uptime on Tricks for those shots, and the tank will get all the threat, which is really great. Yeah.
I think that's pretty well known, but for those of you who do not know about that, that's fairly important.
Yeah, Misdirection apparently only covers one shot, but Tricks just stays forever.
The cannons were meant to be used. Like they tuned these mobs up on health and damage. Like they deal a lot more damage than other mobs on this difficulty, because they want you to use the cannons to kill the mobs. But whoever shoots the cannon can't be a tank, because then the mobs will just melee you in the cannon and kill you, and you can't even hit them because they're all like inside the hitbox of the cannon. So you have to have a DPS or a healer do it. And the only reason why it's so easy with a DPS doing it is because rogues have this bug on Tricks. And otherwise, I don't really know what Blizzard would expect people to use.
Yeah,
I don't know. You
bugged
could probably,
interaction.
I mean, on Mythic Zero,
trees.
On Mythic Zero, it's probably reasonable to hold threat against the cannons. Like, that's the sick part. It's just Mythic Plus where it starts to be overtuned.
Dude, I think even in like a 15, there's no chance you're holding threat over the cannon.
Yeah, but
I don't think so.
But do you think Blizzard designed this for Mythic Zero or for 15?
I think the dungeons are legitimately balanced around 15s. I legitimately think the dungeons are balanced around 15s and around the meta achievement currently.
Have you ever been to King's Rest?
King's Rest is doable in a 15. I don't think it's like good, but
I don't know. I think that it's just not something they thought about for M+.
Sure.
But I agree. I think they meant to think about it, but they didn't in this case.
Yeah, some cannons are just really stupid without a rogue. Yeah, it's way harder. And we'll talk a little bit more about doing that without a rogue later, but it is definitely a lot worse. Okay.
I mean, think this through. Like, they like the cannons originally just did not scale with the dungeon, and then coming into season 2, they buffed the dungeon timer by 3 minutes and added functionality of the cannon scaling with dungeon level.
Mm-hmm.
This is definitely not thought through, I don't think.
And now we have some footage of Overseer Corgus on screen, which for those who don't know,
absolutely no way I die.
Yeah, this is Trell's new favorite boss.
This was 3 months ago. This was before I lost my ability to do this boss.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the Temple of Sethraliss. So this dungeon, not a super trash intensive dungeon, but there is some trash that is worth noting. At the start of the dungeon, we have these Shrouded Fangs, Marksmen, and Dust Devils. We're skipping it in this video, but sometimes the meta nowadays is actually to pull that pack with multiple Shrouded Fangs in it. What is the strategy for dealing with a Shrouded Fang stun, Trell?
You got a couple options. In season 1, before I knew of several other options, I would have my healer give me their external if possible. Like as I went into the pull, like I'd say, "Jam, bark me on pull, please," and I'd also have Iron Skin up, and I'd probably Fort Brew as well. Nowadays, that's probably overkill because you can do. I mean, for one, you probably don't need to use several defenses while you're stunned this late in the expansion, but you also have the choice of using a potion called the Dranic Living Action Potion, which just breaks you out of the stun. So if you did not pre-pot the pull, as soon as you get stunned, you press the Dranic Living Action Potion, and you're back in business.
Yeah, you can even pre-pot Dranic Living Action if you're going into that pull with 2 fangs and just not get stunned at all by them. So that's a useful little interaction there. Also, true. Your DPS can soak the Shrouded Fang stun if they are the closest people to like the patrolling one that comes and joins the fight. That's what actually happened in this video. Is Morning ended up soaking the Shrouded Fang stun, which helped. So that's another option is to try and have your DPS pull them.
Can we actually back this? Yeah, can we back this up a little bit? So at the very beginning, you actually see that they wanted to CC the Marksman and the Dust Devil, but I had a couple issues with the Tides. That Dust Devil, whenever it's sitting next to the Tides, is actually just not even. It's like not even affected by the Tides yet. So you could. So there's multiple options for what you can do with this. What we see sometimes is people will actually just like run in and tank the Tides and the Dust Devil at the exact same spot where they currently stand, just like at the very beginning, to where that the Tides nor the Dust Devil ever move, to where you can just kick the Dust Devil whenever you would like. Alternatively, if you really want to, you could actually just open up with the sap on that Dust Devil because it's out of combat. Like the sap can be the first CC that you use, and then you can taunt the Tides away from it.
Yeah, sometimes the Tides will apply the aura while it's running away, and that can break the sap, but if you do it from the right angle, that doesn't happen. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird that it's not buffed. Like, if you can leap in or roll in and just keep them from moving at all, the Dust Devil will be kickable, which is really nice. Or you can pull them up the stairs like we see in this clip, and that also makes them kickable because of the Z-axis.
Yes. And for those of you who don't know, Z-axis, what we're referring to is basically, I don't know, what was it, like 3 or 4 weeks into the patch, they realized that Waycrest Manor Tides were
applying their aura through the ceiling,
through the roof, and they decided that the way that they wanted to fix it is to make sure that the Tides aura did not apply through any Z-axis point at all. This, of course, is really stupid.
It means the Tides will never apply an aura to stuff above or below them, Which
and you have a rug here in Temple of Sethraliss that is legitimately...
It's 1 pixel high or whatever.
Thick.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the rogues are funny.
And that's enough to make a Z-axis, which is great.
Yep, pretty much. Z-axis in this game is pretty bad.
Okay, so in this video, we're seeing footage of pulling the bottom of the stairs pack. What do you guys think about the big pull with 2 fangs, 2 marksmen, and 2 pups?
I think it's really efficient. It's hard, but it's really efficient. It makes you skip an extra pull in the dungeon if you do it right.
Yeah. I don't think it's that challenging. What have you guys struggled with it most of the issues with it?
Tettles, don't you remember when we chain wiped to it and we turned 2 Temple 23 keys into 20 keys?
Well, there was a void in that pack. I don't...
Okay, that's true. That was Void Week.
Really
that was Void Week. It's impossible to not die to the pup plus the Void Explosion. I kind of will give a mulligan to that one.
Dude, we literally started Temple keys 5 times in a row and wiped that pack 4 of those 5 times. It was...
Okay. So Void Week, I'm going to go ahead and go on a limb and say that pack's probably not doable.
Yeah, we does skip that on Void Week.
Is closed, yeah.
Temple is hard closed on Void Week, actually. Like, there's so many bad skips.
So
without the Void, though,
Week,
the ranged player is in danger on that pack, mostly, because the pup jumps to one of the people at range, like with a healer or a boomkin or a mage, for example.
It's furthest range, yeah.
And that can overlap with like the marksman attempting to power shot you or just doing regular shoots at you, I believe.
Yeah, when
correct?
I've done that pull, we've stopped all power shots. We've had like one rogue, or yeah, I just gouge every power shot on one of them, and then we call other stops on the other one, and that makes it really easy.
Yeah. Yeah, and then basically the timer for headbutt, which is the pup ability, is on a 10-second timer, so it's actually fairly easy to predict, and you can make sure that they are getting like iron barked or they're using their own personal for the headbutt, because they're actually only in danger if they get double headbutt into like double marksman shoot within a few seconds. Beyond that, the pull is relatively safe as long as you're stopping all the power shots. I would say that your tank is actually kind of in danger on pull, and that's where the Drainic Living Action Potion or trees are really important, because as soon as you pull that pack, your tank is just going to instantly get stunned. So making sure that he has a way to not get just completely blasted by the whole entire pack while inside of a stun.
God, could you imagine? Could you imagine doing it as a Guardian Druid or a Blood Death Knight, and you just get stunned without Iron Fur or Bone Shields or whatever, and you just have to survive for 2.5 seconds or 3 seconds or whatever with no no active mitigation up?
Yeah,
Man.
anecdotally, as a Moonkin, trees are literally my first global on that, but I don't think trees are fairly common for most groups to have, so I think having Drainic Living Action Potion is the most...
Drainic Living Action Potion really big for this. Okay, let's move on to the striker pulls. Or Trell, do you have anything to add on that?
Well, I was just going to say that's the same story for any pulls that have the Sharded Fangs in them in that room. You should be careful. And also on teaming, there's 2 patrolling Sharded Fangs in the second section of the dungeon that you have to be aware of, too, that will stun you and kill you if you're a tank.
You want to know what's actually hilarious?
Oh, yeah, Blood Death Knight can actually immune this with Icebound Fortitude, so that works, too.
Yes.
Yeah. Right, yeah, I'd forgotten about that, so it's actually pretty good for them.
You know the little Krolus that actually walks around with the stealth guys?
Yes, that's worth a count.
You can actually lose count. Yeah, you can fuck up your count if you don't get them.
And sometimes it does not follow the Shrouded Fang. So if you ever find yourself with like a weird number of count at the end of the dungeon, that's what you missed, and that's really.
Yeah, do we know how you missed that? Because I'm literally so just confused.
It's just sometimes it hangs out by the right pack. Sometimes it just is hanging out by the right pack. And it does not move, even though the Shrouded Fang is moving. Yeah.
Oh, it just
seems to be just a random chance. Yeah, it just doesn't follow its leader for whatever reason. Some keys.
Yeah.
And so that's why I always tend to make my temple routes 2 count over. Although these days we've kind of figured out why it happens, and we can go across the room and snipe it. Because you can actually go over and damage it and just get the count.
It dies in like one global as well. Like 1 Star Surge kills it, I think.
As long as you do it before the...
Yeah, as soon as the Shrouded Fang dies, it despawns, and then you've lost the count forever. It's so stupid. Okay, one of the most common areas to skip is the area between the first and second boss. All the shrouded, all the snakes along the way there and stuff. Usually groups will like pull the one rider on the bridge with the things you have to dodge, and then shroud from there. Again, you can't on Void Week, that gets scuffed because there's voids in the way, but usually those are things we pull or we skip. When would you actually want to pull those packs between those 2 bosses, Trell?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't want to ever pull those.
Okay, that's a good enough answer for me. Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm fine leaving it at that. They're pretty awful.
I think if you're on too low of a key and you only have like 1 rogue or you don't have a rogue.
Yeah. So one problem is you don't have Shroud
true.
back. Yeah, and that then you might want to pull that first pack just to get Shroud back.
Yeah, if you have the low key tax where you're just not going to have Shroud up, there is potential for you to pull it. But I don't know. Issues that you can't really skip count anywhere else in the dungeon.
Right. Yeah. There's basically no like. You have to skip pretty much everything that's skippable in here, or you're going to be like you start at maybe 80% count just with the mandatory mobs in this dungeon, so you can only add a little bit more than that.
There is actually a way with the route that I think Trell is playing here. He's actually going to pull the Nimbus and Stormcaller down at the bottom of the stairs, which I would say probably ill-advised, but I think the meta has changed since this run has been done fairly heavily.
Yeah, I changed the route since this run.
Yeah, exactly. The route's been changed a lot. I guess technically you could do the striker pack with like the Ophidian marksman, even though it's so poor, and then you would just have to skip like legitimately everything else. And you'd have to just in your first pull is that bottom of the stairs pack.
Yes, so there is a way, but it's not common, right? We don't usually want to do that.
You would rather invis pot.
I think I agree with you on that.
Yeah, I think I'd rather invis pot in the lower keys. Just plan to do it.
Let's talk about this second boss room then. What's the important things to keep in mind in this room, Trell?
Well, this season they're like kind of rearranged where not every mob is patrolling. I think every week there's an emissary on the left in some way. It's either enchanted or tides, and sometimes there's a void at the very beginning of the room. The general goal is to do this room in 2 pulls if you can do it. And by 2 pulls, I mean kind of like starting with the first couple mobs and then chaining into the next rider, and then doing a full second pull with the emissary after that. If you can do that, that's the most efficient way. I've broken it up into 3 pulls many times if I don't have the right defensives up, or if I'm worried about the affixes such as necrotic. Like necrotic's pretty rough here with the riders not being able to be CC'd in any way until they get off their mount.
Yes, this is also really awful if you don't have a poison dispel.
Oh yes,
having access to one of those from a druid or a monk or whatever, really big, or paladin.
The poisons in this area actually do the most tank damage, and they won't show up on the meters that way, but only because we have 3 poison dispels and we all instantly use them because they do so much damage. Mm-hmm. Like if you watch the party frames, myself, the boomkin, and the healer are all dispelling one of the poison stacks instantly if we can.
Yes, it's lucky when they all go at the same time, but yeah, you have it on their view for like a second and then it goes away. Very, very important for this room. Because those do actually a lot of damage. So if you are caught for some reason in a comp that doesn't have a poison dispel, you're gonna have to be a lot more careful in this place.
Yeah, that would actually be very scary without a poison dispel. I think I would kite the entire time.
Yeah, even then they'll still spit at you as well, which sucks.
Yeah, just like the extra damage from melees, it just would be too much, I think.
You have to pull very slowly in those comps. Tettles, do you have anything in this room? Even if you just have 1 poison dispel, it gets a lot harder too.
Did you guys talk about how the heal works? The healing potion?
No, go ahead.
From the tender?
Tell us. Yeah.
So basically, if they have the debuff, then they can't be healed by the cast anymore. So you're actually fine to have it happen, but you should also purge the debuff off of the tenders if they have it on them. Otherwise, they're going to be healed by a pretty significant amount.
The one that they get from draining the eggs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the drain, whenever they are using the drain on the eggs, it can't be like knocked or anything else, but it can be like stunned or parried or blinded or something like that.
You can gouge them as well, yeah. So having again, this is a spot where like an outlaw rogue can just handle all of the drains pretty easily. But if you don't have that, you'll need to use like coordinated stuns or something on them to make sure that they don't actually get their drain casts.
Yeah, and I'd say they're talking about the Faithless Tenders.
Yes.
In their cast of the heal that they do. I can't remember the name of the cast. It's like mending something.
A greater healing potion or
like
something?
Healing potion, yeah.
Yeah, right. But that's the second priority in that room. The first priority is kicking the rider, the guy on top of the
scales. Yeah.
You want to purge that or kick it as soon as possible. It does quite a lot of damage to the group, and it's kind of like the lightning shield in the first boss instance. Rid of that as soon as possible. After that, you want to kick any heals you can, depending on the size of the pull, and probably just dodge the
lightning in a bottle.
Lightning in a bottle puddles in the ground. Yeah.
That one's fairly easy.
Okay. One thing you can also do with this boss is you can actually pull the agitated Nimbus through the wall and pull it into the boss room. Let's see if we can get some footage of that happening. It is an extra little option here. I don't know if you guys you did it in this run, Trell. Do you think it's usually a good idea to do?
I think it's a really good idea. It's basically like just fitting the only mob you can possibly do with this boss during the boss. And if you can ever add trash to a boss, that's almost guaranteed a time loss overall for the dungeon, a time gain for the dungeon overall, where you do the timer in a shorter amount. And so it didn't show it in this clip because someone else did it for me, but someone goes over there and jumps and hits the Nimbus through the wall. And then they brought it to me, and I pulled the boss so that it went as fast as possible.
If you can actually pause it, you can actually see there's like an egg that is like just a little bit bigger than the other ones. That's like off in the middle, and basically if you jump like over that and use any instant cast ability, that's where you can tag that Nimbus through the wall from. Yeah,
YouTube is being a little bit scuffed, so it's not quite showing, but if you're interested, you can study this clip or this video and watch that exact spot. But yeah, there's a spot you can get line of sight basically an egg that you jump onto that then lets you hit the Nimbus. You need to have a nice long range ability, so not all specs can do this. And yeah, if you're interested, again, there's a show notes document that's in Twitch chat right now that'll be in the description to this video, and that will be in the show notes of the podcast. So wherever you're seeing this, you should be able to find a nice little Google Doc link. And if you do that, there's YouTube links to like all the things we're talking about, so you can study these parts yourself when on demand. Let's talk about the Nimbus and Dervish room as we start getting deeper into the dungeon in the Galv room. So what's the deal with Nimbuses and Dervishes in this area, Trell?
Nimbuses are a well-balanced mob, in my opinion. They do a lot of damage, but they are susceptible to counterplay. Like, you can assign 2 melee kicks to take care of every cast on a Nimbus, so you would trade with some other melee 15-second interrupt cooldown person, or a shaman. And that will take care of them. Or you can have a Demon Hunter solo them with kicking every other cast and purging the other casts in between.
Yeah, usually better to do kicks on it rather than have a Demon Hunter take care of it, because the Demon Hunter loses some damage to purge, but that is definitely also an option.
It's only the best thing if there's other kicks in the pool that everyone else needs to address, like the Stormcaller mob that's normally with the Nimbus in 2 of these pools.
Yes, if you choose to do Nimbus with Stormcaller, that's important, yeah.
A common way to do this Nimbus here is, I actually didn't do it in this run, I pulled the Tides with the Ring of Peace instead, but you would normally pull a Nimbus with 2 of these Dervishes, kind of like we're doing here, and someone would kick the Nimbus, and it's very important. You just want to lessen the damage on the group. Nimbus does quite a lot of tank damage if he has the buff for an extended period of time. And the Dervishes already deal enough damage, as you can see them killing my group over and over.
These things really do hurt.
Man, the way that you guys pull that far side Dervish into this pack is actually so dangerous too, because he's actually just like out there at 40 yards just zapping everybody before he teleports in for 10 seconds.
I think not the whole group was in range of him as well, so he was just zapping a couple people repeatedly.
That is so scary.
It is extremely sketchy. I think that's why Morning went down actually on this pull. But this was from a while ago. This is from October.
This was the first time we did a Temple 24 this season, I think. Luckily we timed it, but yeah, we didn't do a couple things as efficiently as we could have.
One fun thing about these Dervishes, they don't bolster when they die. They drop 5 stacks of Sanguine when they die, though. So that's cool. So if you stand in those Sanguine pools, you die very quickly, and it heals the mobs up very quickly as well. 1 tick is all it needs, basically. So that really sucks if you don't have a way to knock them. You can easily get them in a spot where they all are stacked, and then 1 dies and they heal everything. So if
they also used to summon 5 Reaping Ghosts each in Season 2, and then they fixed that, but for some reason they still summon 5 pools of Sanguine.
Yeah. So if you're in a group that doesn't have Ring of Peace or whatever, or Nox, you need to have the tank be moving as they're getting low and dying, so that they'll teleport to different spots.
That is the least reliable shit I think I've heard today.
It's not. Yeah, you can see here like the fact that they have Ring of Peace bails them out, but if you don't have Ring of Peace there, it's really really scuffed. So
I mean, you would rather enchant your engineering belt with the knockback enchant, like right before this dungeon. You'd rather like go level engineering and get the knockback enchant to make sure these guys are not just gonna bathe inside of that Sanguine. Definitely
knock belt. Yeah, engineering knock belt, very useful thing to get. Would absolutely recommend. Okay, let's talk about the eyeball room. We have the orbs here. Here we have a little clip of how to handle this, the rogue solo side. So rogue, without any help, can do the right side pretty easily, even if there's a void there, wherever the void is actually, without pulling the void. The important thing to remember if you're soloing the right side is that there is a orb guardian if you hug right the whole way. So you need to actually go inwards at the end and go through the middle of the room. Another nice little tip here you can see me doing is if you jump before you pick up the ball, you can keep your forward momentum and not be slowed. And that means you can do this run really, really fast and get the orb in like 10 seconds. Meanwhile, the left-hand side, usually the tank will pull most of the trash out of the way, and then somebody will just run and grab the orb there and just throw it forwards and go pick it up. You can see that's what's happening in this clip here. And everybody else just kind of plays defense on the orb guardians and keeps them from getting to that person.
He was waiting for the tank to pull the mobs off. If you saw in the clip, he kind of waited by the orb for a little bit. As a tank, you want to pull the 2 packs closest to the skull primarily, and then probably all the mobs on the left side to clear that path for the rest of the team. So the rogue can solo right, but then you can make it easy for the left side.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what's the deal with like mobs being in combat via sap and blind and para and needing to break them out?
Yes. So Orb Guardians in particular have a weird combat coding where they will not get in combat with you, but they will chase you down and hit you once. Once you pick up an orb, they like queue up running and hitting you, and they will not stop for anything until they successfully do that. So if you sap them or blind them or whatever, and you will just get in a spot where they run and hit you afterwards and mess up your skip to the next area. So you need to break any CCs that you use on them before you leave this room, so that you don't have that happen to you. Conscript's not the same. Conscripts will not do that to you, so you don't have to worry about saps or blinds on them. It's just the Guardians that will do this.
I think another important thing to note here is that if you have a healer or someone who can stay in stealth this entire time, they should. If the rest of the team can do the gauntlet without them, that way they don't ever have to die at the end. Because in high keys, it's actually faster for the people in combat to die after you put the eyeballs in, and then just get res and continue the dungeon rather than killing all the mobs and the orb guardians.
I mean, even if you are playing with the Holy Pal, you can just stay out of combat with all this trash if you're being very careful and your tank is being diligent about pulling the mobs away from you.
That's true.
Or you can have your balanced druid staff all these conscripts and kill them all with the staff proc.
I don't know how many stacks he's gonna have to kill all these conscripts with one staff.
They have they have like as much health as the tentacles in Shrine. I think it's doable. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe you have 2 people staff this room.
Sure.
That's okay.
Shut up.
Don't use your staffs in this room, chat.
I don't know. I like to take focusing iris for this dungeon, just for this room. That's a really good essence for temple. So just take it and then use it in this room to get some good pad in.
I mean, side note: if you actually are playing with a ranged DPS who has a staff and they really don't want to die here, they can actually just like stand on the bridge, do the same shit, like stand by the healer and just not do.
Never get in combat.
Orbs.
Yes.
There's also some neutral bats. Hold on, that fly like over the bridge, and you can just like tag them with some abilities. Like as a Moonkin, I'll either use Soothe or Taunt to just like grab them out of the sky, and then I'll heal myself a couple times just to refresh that stack, and then you refresh it. Like a mage could probably just use spell.
Yeah. You gotta make sure to not heal yourself too much, because then you'll proc your staff on the bat. But yeah,
I'm not like spamming heals. I'm not like using all my mana. I'm just healing myself like twice per and then like the bat like evade resets. So
yes,
it's really pretty cool.
Very cool tip. Yeah, looking for those bats on that bridge is great. Okay, let's talk about the last boss room in this place. So one thing that we almost always do is pull trash into the boss during the empowered phase. This is a really important thing to do in Keith. If you're not already doing this, you're losing a lot of time in temple. So you want to shroud through them or whatever, or death skip or anything. And then once you get into this last phase of the boss and you get the empowerment, which takes a couple seconds to tick, then you send somebody to go and pull all the trash in that hallway, and you just kill it with your huge empowerment buff. Really important tip there. Just make sure that you don't finish the boss while that trash is still alive, because then you'll lose your empowerment buff and your tank will get murdered very quickly.
What's the reset range on this boss, actually? Like, if you accidentally knock one of the doctors out of that, like, circular arena area, just, like, insta-resets the boss, right?
You know, this might be the only boss in Battle for Azeroth that I have not ever reset.
Yeah, I have not seen that either. They've definitely made it easier. Like, they made it reset more aggressively when they fixed that bug where you could just stay in combat with it the whole time.
Okay. So I'm pretty sure if any of the Plague Doctors or the Heart Guardians that spawn natively from the fight walk out of the area, then the boss instantly resets.
Okay,
so
try not to do that.
Your tank should never be the person to go grab the mobs. I'm fairly confident it's like a pretty aggressive, like, into fight, just like kills it right there.
Interesting. So you really, A of all, your tank should not be the person to do it, and B of all, they should make sure that they gatekeep and stop any mobs from like running at the healer outside of the boss room. So make sure they get throughout on everything, and probably stand by that area to make sure that nothing gets through.
I think the most efficient way is to have a rogue vanish as the boss is about to hit the threshold of health where it starts this phase. And they run up the ramp, and as soon as they have the buff of protection, then they can start trixing everything down the ramp.
Yeah, that's
so they're like already up there, ready to go.
Oh, but they can't get broken out by like pulse combat. Like the ability that the boss casts is called pulse, and like if they accidentally get hit by anything, they can get taken out of stealth instantly, and that can be fairly bad, even if they do vanish. if they get like pulled out of stealth right before just like they get the buff or anything, they'll just like instantly die to the trash pack.
True. Gotta be careful.
Man, this is a close timer. You guys only had 6 seconds left at the end of this. This is a good video.
Yeah, that was a good run. That was a couple months ago. We'd only attempted the 24 one time, as I said, and that means you deplete it the first time you try it, but it's fun to one-shot keys like that.
Yeah, Temple, a really good one for Fortified Enchanted Weeks. Doable on much higher than it is on any of the other affix combos. Okay, let's talk about Freehold. Freehold opens up with 9 mobs at the start. When is it right to pull these versus not pulling them, Trell?
Honestly, these days the play is to kill them on fort, but as long as there's not a Void Emissary. The Void Emissary with that pull on a high fort key would be very, very difficult.
Yeah, so the reason we kill these on Fortified is so that we can Bloodlust this pull on Fortified, right? We just fire off our Lust right at the start of the dungeon. Whereas on Tyrannical, we really want to save it for Skycap and Crag, so we want to just get there as fast as possible.
What about Fortified Tides Week, where there's like where you get the bonus count from the event?
I think even then you should still do this and just skip more stuff later.
I think this is still the most efficient pull in the dungeon because it's the only pull that you can reliably triple pull on most given weeks with affixes that most other places in the dungeon, if you try to triple pull in the second boss area, there's so many harpooners that make it really difficult. This pull is actually kind of controllable as a tank. Like you see me, I'm going to go over here and LOS the crack shot in the video, and he has to walk around the stairs, and that's how I'm moving him out of the puddle, using those stairs right there to move him.
Yeah,
most of the pulls, though, like you get thrown around and gripped by the mobs as a tank, and triple pulling is very hard.
I guess my thought process is that there's only so much time that you can actually save by doing this 9-pack in the beginning because you have to wait so long on Ring of Booty RP. So there's only so many trash packs that you actually have to feasibly do. But if this trash pack is efficient, then it's just efficient, right? There's nothing really more to it.
Yeah, I mean, you get 14.6% from that one pull that takes like a minute, a minute and a half. Like,
I
so good.
I still think it's the most efficient pull possible in the dungeon that's safe on most affixes. And it's also guaranteed that everyone has cooldowns for it because it's the very first pull right as you come out of the gate.
If you're
People
playing
get
with
full
Demon Hunters and Boomies as well, you get their pre-metas, their pre-incarns, and it's really good to get value from those.
Exactly, yeah.
Let's talk about what we do if there's a Void Emissary in that first spot. So sometimes there's that Void Emissary in the stairs, and that can be hard to skip. But if you have a Druid in your group, it is possible to skip with Travel Form Wild Charge.
Okay, so Druid, Warrior, or Rogue can actually all just like get over this little lip area, but Druid and Demon Hunter specifically can actually jump over this gate like you're actually going to see in this clip. I actually made 2 clips for this.
Yeah, so Warlock Gate, I think, works for this.
Oh yeah, Warlock Gateway. Yeah, that's a good point.
So nobody
plays fucking Warlock. I always forget about
you can Wild Charge up here, you can Heroic Leap up here, Grappling Hook, all of those work, and you can use this to get around the tides there. What you want to do if you're doing this is probably like sap the close mobs under this little hut here. Sap Blind or whatever. Yeah, Tettle's killed them in this clip, but if you're doing this in a key setting, you would Sap Blind something, the Rogue would get in combat and would vanish it off later, and everybody else, you could Goblin Jump it even. Lot of different options for getting up here. Here's another clip of this Wild Charge. You can put a Racing Flag up there, and you can Human Form Wild Charge it also.
And that's the same for Heroic Leap and Grappling Hook and all that other shit, is that if you have a way to get through terrain like that, then you can actually just like Wild Charge through. It's kind of sick.
Yes, so if you want to skip past that Void without having to do a death skip, this is a good way to do it. This is recommended. But it requires your whole group to have a plan for getting through there. Or your healer can get through and your group can die and the healer can mass. But even that is faster than like doing a B-res skip, and it saves a B-res. So we endorse finding a way for your healer to at least not get in combat with a Void if you want to skip it. Because it is tough to fight that Void.
Void week.
Yeah. If you're fighting that Void, you have to like line it under the stairs, but there's like, Enforcer smashes and Azurite grenades or whatever that are zoning you out from if you stack up there. It gets rough. It gets really rough. So avoid that Void.
Avoid it.
Yeah.
Or you could just Shadow Meld.
Yeah, Shadow Meld, very good here for this. Do recommend being Alliance, but some of us accidentally picked Horde, and all our friends are Horde. So what can you do? Okay. After that, we have trash in the boss room. Used to be that we would sometimes pull the trash from the bottom of the stairs, but these days we just always pull this top pack because Infested isn't here anymore. It used
Why
to be
did we pull the bottom?
It was because
was it because of Infested?
Yeah, it was because there was always one that didn't have an infested mob in it and one that did. But ever since that has changed, we basically always just pull the top part that spawn, because there are 2 packs that spawn Crag if you kill them. You can kill either pack and it spawns Crag.
What is actually in the bottom pack?
It's like the same thing.
Yeah, it's like 1 extra mob, but still 2 enforcers, I think.
Yeah. It's like the same thing with a crack shot or something.
Maybe that's where we get count some week. Yeah, whatever. We'll have to.
I don't know. That means that 4-pack is there for the entire boss fight, and
oh no,
the way the strats go for this
pack. Fuck that.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, you can't, because then you can't bait the poop back there without risking getting in combat with them.
Yeah, that fucking patrol is already like sketchy enough as is. Never mind. You're right.
Yeah, do not want. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the RP event for spawning the Council of Captains, which is a little different on different weeks. This is an Enchanted week, I think, that our footage is from. So the Enchanted week is just talking to the build trap person, and you get your account, or everybody just talks to them, and that's all you have to do. Tettles, what's active on Void Week? What's the strat on Void Week?
Get the dog on Void Week. So basically, you could a rogue can do the dog solo if he's very sick. I'm not entirely sure how he does it, but definitely possible for a rogue to do it. Basically, you just walk over the dog, and then he'll move from point to point. You don't need to interact.
Yes. The important tip for doing that as a rogue is you have to be really fast, because there's a void that will see you if you're slow. And you just use a pillar to keep a pillar between you and that void for as long as you can also. And then you use Vanish at the end of it, yeah? How about on Tides Week, Trell? What's the active event on Tides Week?
Oh, the Tides event is the extra pull that you have to do. The brawlers are all active in that area, and if you tag one of them, then the rest of the brawlers will get put in combat and they'll run to you. And it's good to know that you tagging one of the brawlers with something single target will not aggro any other mob in the area, even if the rat patrol is right next to them when you tag them. They can run straight through the rat and not pull them.
Yes.
So on Tides Week, you have to kind of figure out what pull you want to drop, because you have to do that pull, or combine the extra pull with an existing pull.
And
those guys do a lot of damage.
That's a really useful way to get extra count that week, because it is required. Sometimes I see groups get to really high count and then do the event, and then they just overcap. So you do want to avoid doing that. And some of them some of those mobs behave slightly differently. Some of them don't actually die, so they won't trigger on death affixes. They just turn unfriendly instead of hostile when they reach 0 health. So that is that's tough.
Okay, so when do you generally when would you know that you want to start the RP event for that corresponding week? Because basically, once you do the RP event, one of the Council of Captains bosses becomes friendly and will assist you in fighting the Council of Captains. Once the Council of Captains dies, then some corresponding mobs with trash packs will run away, and you can no longer get count from them. How do you know when you want to actually do the RP and then kill the boss to make mobs run away?
Trell, I'll leave this one to you as the route maker, yeah?
Yeah, in MDT, there's an option to join the crew of the week, and that basically means once you've clicked that, you've done the RP in the dungeon, so it grays out the mobs that will run away after the boss is killed. Some things to be aware of, though, is even though when you check that and say you haven't fought the boss yet, but you've done the RP, some mobs are still kind of there, and they'll aggro even though they're friendly. So if you tag the rest of the mobs in that certain pack, then the mobs that were friendly for a second will just come running at you a few seconds later.
Yeah, so
I think a bug, but something to be aware of.
Yeah, they'll just mobs turn friendly when you do the event, but they don't actually leave until you kill the Council of Captains. So if they are friendly, they might turn hostile when you pull the other mobs that were in their pack. So that is something to watch out for.
And that's the time between finishing the RP and before you kill the council boss.
Right.
And the other thing is you want to do the RP at a certain point once you've killed all the mobs that you for sure need to get. So like a lot of these packs around the second boss, we do them first and then do the RP so that we get all the mob count and have slightly larger pulls before all the mobs run away after the RP is done.
Basically, you want to plan your pull sizing. So like if joining the crew lets you start double pulling packs and you can actually pull more mobs per pull that way, then you should do it. But if it doesn't let you pull extra packs at once, then you should pull all your packs before joining the crew and get your count that way, right?
Correct, yeah.
Depending on the week, different mobs go friendly. I would say the week where the Cutwater boss becomes friendly and that takes away the harpooners, it's really good to like, you want to do all the Cutwater knife jugglers you can, and then you can join the crew and avoid fighting any harpooners. That's my favorite way to do that week because harpooners really suck. And then other than that, like I usually want to just wait as long as possible to join the crew and do some big pulls and then join the crew and be done with my trash roughly.
This is an example on screen right now. For those that are listening, we're doing the double pull with the Harpooner pack and then the 2 Brine Scales pack to the left of it. This is a one that you want to do before the RP is done any given week, just because it's worth a good like 12 to 14 more count than it would be after the RP is done. And it's a good pull. The mobs are usually doable even on Necrotic if you're careful. You can outrange the Harpooners, by the way. You can just move completely out of their range. I should have done it right here. I'm in grave danger. I didn't do it, but I should have. So I get dragged in. Luckily, I transcended out, but man, that was close.
It was indeed. Harpooners are the thing that will cause you to die in this, but there is counterplay for them, so it is possible to fight packs that include Harpooners. It's just scary. You just need to be on the tip of your toes, or whatever the expression is. Okay, let's talk about Ravagers. Ravagers are a later piece of trash in Freehold that I think there are people that aren't using these to the fullest thing possible. So let's put a clip up on screen from that. Doop, doop, doop. Okay, here we go. So here's you guys going into the Ravager area, and what you're doing is you're using some crowd control to make sure that each Ravager is going to cast Painful Motivation and hit themselves and 2 other mobs. And it actually looks like it was scuffed a little bit in this video. We didn't quite get the Oarsman.
Yeah, it was.
To buff itself. And the other Ravager got Z-axised as well. So this is actually not how to do this.
So the safer way, rather than this clip, is to have the Rogue and someone else CC the 3 mobs on the right side of the pack. 3 out of the 4 mobs in the right pack need to be CC'd. And then the tank taunts the 4th mob that's not CC'd into the first 2 so that the Ravagers are divided up with 3 and 3 mobs each.
Yeah.
But what we do, we try to make it a little faster and fancier, where Morning just takes aggro of the 3 on the right, and I taunt one out of it instantly without any CC prep. And then we both, like, he uses his evasion and cloak to live while I tank the other 3, and both Ravagers go off at the same time to save just a few seconds, but we screwed it up that time, and now we have to manually kill 3 mobs.
Yeah, so not what you want to see there. It is worth noting these mobs are fairly killable. One thing to avoid is panicking and then not kicking the Oarsman while you're on the bridge. If that Oarsman cast goes off and you're on this bridge, that gets really scary. Because there's a lot of space taken up by that sea spout, so watch out for that if you do end up fighting this. But if this is well executed, you can get all 6 of these mobs dead in like 10 seconds and then skip through, and that's really good.
Okay, and what if there's a Tides in the pack?
Yeah, so if there's a Tides, I think like you are no longer going to be able to kill all of them anyways, so you're just trying to make each Ravager hit 2 mobs, and that's what you need to do. What do you have any further tips for dealing with Tides there, Tuttles?
Nah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think you try and buff. I mean, it kind of doesn't even matter. Like, you kind of want the Tides to be the last thing to live because it has less health than everything else.
I mean, ideally, sure.
What is that skip? Yeah, that's a slow fall skip from that little tower. We'll talk more about the skips next episode when we talk about skips. That's going to be a really fun one.
Yeah, we got lots of skips.
We got so many. Okay. On this last boss, do you ever pull the trash in and kill it with cannons? That's something you may have seen if you're watching MDI streams. Is that something you ever do on live keys, Trell?
I've done it in like a 22, 23 before. It hasn't actually been necessary to time the highest level Freehold keys yet. But if it ever became necessary to shave off that amount of time, I think we would all do it still. It's very dangerous and requires a lot of coordination. But basically, in phase 2, once this cannon barrage starts targeting 4 players instead of just 1, all 4 players can drop the cannons in the exact same spot. And if you have all 5 players moving together at the same rate, then the middle pack can be hit by the bombardment every tick. And if you land all 4 bombardments on the middle pack, then every mob will die in one blast. or one set of blasts rather. But it does take a lot of coordination, and since we don't have Tournament Realm to practice on life keys, we generally just opt out of doing it.
So somebody in a 25 actually did it. One of the world first 25s actually pulled trash into Heartland.
Yeah, it does save time. That
It's certainly the best way to do this area, 100%.
Okay, slightly off-topic question here, but I feel like one that is potentially worth answering. When do we bloodlust on Harlan Suite? When's the optimal time to lust this boss?
Whenever everybody has cooldown.
Yes, there's no way to optimize the damage buff with lust. Just lusting on pull actually is usually best for if everybody has cooldowns there. Otherwise, you just wait until people have their coolies. Yeah,
30% is normally a trap, but if everybody has cooldowns at 30%, then I mean the boss will just kind of instantly get killed. So I don't think it's really advised. But so how bloodlust normally works with bosses that take increased damage taken is it's always better to bloodlust whenever all cool, like the most amount of cool.
Yeah, so it depends on what
on
type of damage phase there is. If a boss has a damage phase for like 30 seconds, then you can lust that 30 seconds and that multiplies well. But if a boss just has a damage phase for a certain percentage of its health, like Harlan does, there's no way to optimize for time and save lust for it. That won't help you make more time.
Yeah, pretty much.
So yes, Harlan, there's no benefit to lusting or holding cooldowns in that last phase. Just keep using them to try and pushing it to the last phase faster is equally efficient, basically. Okay.
Agreed.
Let's move on to the Underrot, our next dungeon here. Just moving that in. Man, this would be so easy if I had a scene that I could switch to and not have to show this the whole time. But Discord was down when we started recording today, so we don't
It's
have
still down
that.
for me right now.
It's still down, man. I haven't even checked. That is insane. Okay.
Thinking about like Underrot versus other dungeons. Underrot's a pretty straightforward dungeon and has like intuitive mechanics that you kind of know what to do in this game when you're targeted by it and how to handle it. And then you think of this versus something like Tol Dagor and like how to explain how to do the cannon pulls. It's just so wildly different.
Yeah, Underrot is more like thinking about how much you can pull at once and like a couple of little things, but it is not unintuitive at all. Underrot is great. Okay, so speaking of Underrot, at the very start of the dungeon, do we ever pull the Underrot ticks here?
Well, it looks like we're about to pull them right now.
Yeah.
The answer is no. You did not pull them, though. Those things are bad.
This
is a long
video
time
is from
ago,
July 31st. These days, we do not pull these ticks anymore. But it
Not even once.
yeah,
Is
you
that
can even watch.
Purification Protocol Major? What is going on in this clip?
Yeah, this is a blast from the past here. A triple rogue as well. From
Jamal just got hit by the cleave.
Yep, a lot of
And he lived.
weird stuff is going on here. Of
That
course,
definitely would have killed him in a hierarchy.
yeah. Part of it is this is back when we were still figuring stuff out, but I felt like this was a useful video to actually like show some of these mobs because otherwise you just would never see ticks pulled these days. Okay, so let's talk about this first pull here. If you choose to pull the matron into the priest headhunter pull, that can be pretty scary. The priest, when it's fast casting, you need to make sure it does not get dark reconstruction off. That is really, really, really scary.
Gift of Cahoon can even go off if you have an offensive purge.
Yes, Gift of Cahoon is fine. Blood Bolt's not good, but not pull ending. Dark reconstruction was really bad, so that's important to
Yes,
avoid.
it is.
Yeah. One thing you can do is you can actually pull this 4-pack without that matron if you start the key by shrouding around the right and distracting the matron to the left immediately, and then hugging right. You can avoid
I actually
pulling it
highly
entirely.
recommend that.
Yeah.
Maybe we can get a clip of that sometime. That's a
Yeah,
skip.
I don't have one here, but if you guys can find one in the next 5 minutes, we can show that. And then after that, we just have the RNG Void on Void Week on the sides here. You can see people trying to Purification Protocol it. Love it. The good old days.
Oh, okay. So somebody actually in chat asked, how do healers avoid getting yopped by the charge on that pull? Referring to the matron. Basically, the matron will charge the furthest player, and unless everybody's in melee range, which it would just pick a random target that's in melee. So in general, if you're playing with like a Resto Druid, you would rather have them like swap a bear because the matron charges physical damage. If you're not playing with a Resto Druid, if you're playing with the Holy Pally, it's also the same thing. Armor is pretty good, but you just kind of have to take it case by case as to whether or not your healer should be taking it or whether or not they should just be in melee and you just kind of YOLO. Because if they don't have a personal up and they're not and that, like, say they're like a Mistweaver monk without a personal, they could just get one shot, like 100 to 0 by the matron charge.
You have a holy priest sitting out there, and then suddenly you have an angel sitting out there. That is how that works. If you're interested, we do have a weak aura package from our friend Morning. I'm putting it in Twitch chat right now. Morning's M+ dungeon timers. That is a really useful little thing here that will show you a timer for many dungeon abilities, and one of them is the Blood Matron charge. And that will be, then you can pre-bear form it when you have that.
Yeah, he did a lot of good work. These are all timers that are concerning spells, and they give you a visual on when they're going to cast again, like the Berserker Bleed in King's Rest, the Matron Charge here, the Blade Storm from the King in King's Rest, stuff like that.
Yeah, it is a great weak aura package, and we'll add it to the Google Doc here as well, so people coming in later under the Blood Matron should be able to find that Waggo link too. Okay. Let's advance. Well, first off, let's talk a little bit about what to do if you choose to pull the mask pull, the Befouled Spirit. In this particular piece of footage, we didn't pull that Befouled Spirit at all. That wasn't something that happened here. But what should you do if you do choose to pull that, Trell?
Well, first of all, the most dangerous mob is obviously the big mask thing that everyone tries to skip because it's insane. If everyone focuses it down, though, it's actually a pretty good pull and worth a good chunk of count. Everyone bursts the mask down while someone has a dedicated kick for the Harrowing Despair cast from it. So just one person saves their kick for that. Everyone else in the group kicks the Blood Priest in the pole to make sure it doesn't heal the mask, which is also a group killer. If it gets healed, it's going to probably kill the group because it's going to cast a second time. And then the third thing about that pull is everyone has to trade CCs on the mask to stop its fixate. It fixates on a player and does a massive amount of AoE damage around their target.
Yeah.
So like it'll wind up and then do its first tick, which does like 200k.
It's basically over if it gets a tick and a high key. So you either need the whole group to look at it, or you need to have one outlaw rogue in your group, and one outlaw rogue can control it for about 20 seconds by cycling like gouge between the eyes, blind, vanish cheap shot between the eyes, gouge, and then we start to have a problem after that. But that can keep it covered for a long time. So outlaw rogue extremely good for that pull.
Without the outlaw rogue, I think what we normally do is I use leg sweep on the first one, then I have the demon hunter use fell eruption on the second, and then chaos nova for the third, and then I'll use my paralysis for the fourth, and then the assassination rogue in my group uses blind for the fifth cast, and etc. etc. Those are actually really fun pulls for me because I like coordinating that kind of stuff.
Yeah, when you have to have multiple people do it. Okay, one real quick thing before we continue here. Let's talk about the Distract Shroud skip at the start of the dungeon, because we now have a clip for it, thanks to Lenoxus. So here's footage of how to do the start of the dungeon in a shroud with perfect. A distract for the matron. So you see there, it's just distracted. You can distract it to the left or forwards, as long as it's not distracted right at where you're shrouding. It's fine. And then you can move right into this 4-pull and just pull it away from where the matron will patrol, and then you don't have to fight the matron, and that is really valuable.
Important to know that the matron patrol that's on the bridge too will walk up pretty far, so you need to really make sure that you're in the corner.
Yes, it's careful.
Yeah, this spot here is important.
Don't walk too close to this bridge. Yeah, but there's some nice space over here. If you go on the other side, then there's ticks. So you want to go on this side. This side is the spot where there's the nice 10-yard area where you can stand and not pull anything. Thanks again, Lenoxus, for linking that one. Okay. Let's talk about the room with the blood swarmers, the lashers, the blobs, and the maggots. This, I think, is the highest tank skill room when it comes to like a good tank will be able to pull this room in far faster than a bad tank. Do you agree, Tuttle or Trell?
Yeah. I mean, if you know what to do as a tank, then chain pulling is very important. However, a lot of it has to do with who gets fixated and how fast the pulls actually end up going. Because if they fixate a healer, that's pretty optimal, and the whole group gets to keep damaging, and the Bloodswarmer dies faster. If the healer tanks it correctly, then they don't take any damage from it. And
I would say there's a pretty big limiting factor of time on the pulls, just because of Feral Bloodswarmer HP and Feral Bloodswarmer dying being so heavily crucial to how the pulls are going to go. Because basically, you can never pull more than one Feral Bloodswarmer, otherwise somebody's just going to get insta-killed.
Yeah.
Actually, like it's funny you say that it's up to the tank in this room. I feel very limited by what I could do based on just how the group performs. Like I follow the Bloodstormer around as a tank to keep the other mobs within cleave range if possible, and then I just kind of wait till it dies. I do all I can to help kick and stun and knock all the other casts, but I kind of just waiting around for the mob, the important mob to die, so I can pull the next important mob. Like as you see here, we start with one Bloodstormer. A bunch of other mobs mixed in for passive cleave, but the primary target's that Bloodstormer, and they're all destroying it right now.
Yes, so Bloodswarmer is both the limiting factor and the important thing for the tank to remember is just to always be fighting, always be in combat with exactly one Bloodswarmer in this room, basically. As long as you're doing that, hopefully, then by the time the last Bloodswarmer dies, everything else should be dead as well. And you're always focusing a Bloodswarmer. So you see here, like one Bloodswarmer's down, and Trell moves around a little bit and may even add in another Bloodswarmer to this pull. If he's,
I'm actually being really slow about it here.
Yeah, this is some old footage as well. I think
earlier.
Nowadays we would definitely be a lot faster at pulling that second Bloodswarmer in, and that's how a lot of pulls will work: is Swarmer at the start, kill it, Swarmer at the end, and it dies at the same time as all the other stuff.
Something that's also important to note is whenever the Feral Bloodswarmer will cast Sonic Screech, if you can actually lock it down with Hibernate spam, that's actually really important, and it will make the Bloodswarmer not start its fixate on anybody. If you can just catch it with a Hibernate, you can just like spam Hibernate global over global if you're playing with a Druid, and just keep that guy locked down into like a perpetual cast of Sonic Screech. So that's really nice.
Yes, Hibernate spam is really important to not kick Sonic Screech if you have a Druid Hibernate spamming. If you do
However,
kick it,
it's also pretty hard sometimes, especially if the only Druid you have in your group is Restoration, to get that mob locked into the Hibernate spam, just because the healing required on this pull is like on the tank is not really that much, but if melee start getting hit by the Bloodswarmer that's fixated onto them, it can cost the healer to actually require to heal.
Right, but the healer will not have to do any healing of the Bloodswarmer if they have it Hibernate spammed in a cast of Sonic Screech.
Well, kind of, because if they're in melee and they're fixated, then the Bloodswarmer will melee instantly out of the Hibernate.
Okay. I didn't know that. I thought it would just instantly start casting Sonic Screech and not be able to melee.
Well,
if they're being caught during the Screech,
it's kind of buggy. Yeah, it's kind of buggy.
Okay. Other things to be aware of in this room: the maggots are also something you usually don't want more than one of in a pull. Again, if you have an Outlaw Rogue can handle a maggot by themselves pretty much indefinitely. Gouge will be up for every other one, and then you can cycle between the eyes stun if it's rotational, or Vanish Cheap Shot, or Blind, or Knock Belt, or whatever. So an Outlaw Rogue can handle a maggot pretty much forever with those tools. One thing to note is that, again, from Morning's Weak Aura, that is actually a very precise timed ability. It'll always happen as soon as it comes off cooldown. So if you're ready for it, you can like plan out your rotation to have it between the eyes in the 3 globals that would work to stop the cast. We do highly recommend doing that for handling these maggots. Just assign an Outlaw Rogue to them. If you don't have an Outlaw Rogue, then you'll instead need to like cycle CCs on them and just have somebody like take each one and call that they're getting the next maggot, and that's a lot harder.
This room is very intensive, and all 5 players usually have several things they need to be watching at once. And as a tank, I think it's important that once you're comfortable how to pull this room, that you watch who's being fixated and help them do their jobs. So that, like, say your healer gets fixated and they were going to knock the maggot on the next frontal it was going to do, but then they get fixated and they have to run, then I would instantly say, I'll get next maggot, just to relieve that pressure off them so they don't feel like they need to do 2 things at once.
I think a great example as well is like a Diseased Lasher. Like your Demon Hunter is assigned to kick a Diseased Lasher and suddenly they get fixated by a Bloodswarmer. Then I think the tank can take over that Lasher kick or whatever. Even though a Demon Hunter has a ranged kick, like there's a chance that they'll be doing something weird to avoid the Bloodswarmer. I think that it's really good, to just have the tank take over the Bloodswarmer target's job. That's a great idea. Okay, let's talk about the Lasher kick a little bit. The Lasher kick is on a 12-second internal cooldown, and melee kicks are on a 15-second cooldown. So one thing you'll notice about that is that 12 seconds is less long than 15 seconds. How do we handle this little weird thing?
Most of the time, you just fill with a 15 sec. You just like fill with a stun in between. Sometimes it doesn't cast it exactly on 12 either, and you can have your kick back up though.
Yeah, so sometimes you can just get it naturally because the Lasher just decides to wait a little bit before its cast comes up. But if it does choose to cast, then you do need to fill with a stun or a gouge, or have a shaman in your group who a shaman can kick one always without needing to worry about that cooldown. Or you can just have a call for backup kick on it if you're not fighting too many at once. But that can also be spooky. Of course, disease dispels also work.
If you caught in the video here, I have a weak core that lights up the party frame when they get the disease that I'm able to dispel as a monk. And so I watched the cast go out, like say there was a pull a few minutes ago where there was a Tides and a Lasher. So I knew the cast was going to go through no matter what. And so I just instantly dispelled the party member it was targeting, and they hardly lost any GCDs, I don't think.
Yeah, that is really good when you have monks or priests or paladins or whatever that can take diseases away. Okay, let's talk about Death Speakers and Guardians, the skeletons. What is the deal with these mobs, Tettles?
So the Death Speaker is actually the only really dangerous mob in this pack. It has 2 casts, one of which is interruptible. It's the Raised Dead, and it will summon another Reanimated Guardian. This guy doesn't give count, though, which kind of sucks. So there's no real reason that you'd ever let the Raised Dead cast go off. The other one is Wicked Frenzy, which puts an Enrage on a random Reanimated Guardian. If there's none, then he won't put it on anything. And whenever the Wicked Frenzy is on a target, then whenever it melees somebody, it'll put a pretty bad dot on the player that gets meleeed by that Reanimated Guardian. It can be dispelled, too.
Soothed. So, yeah, it's soothed off.
But, well, I'm saying that the dot.
The dot can be dispelled off the player or soothed off the target. Yeah, but if you dispel the player and the guardian still has frenzy, then it'll keep being reapplied on every melee. So that doesn't solve the problem permanently.
Yeah, there's lots of ways to deal with the Death Speaker dot, and it's actually very, very dangerous. If you ever get a stack of it as a tank on a high key, you're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, it's pretty.
The first
lethal.
way I would recommend is just kiting. Like as soon as it's about to go out, make sure the group doesn't actually stop it, so you're not baited by doing something and then having to return to the group. But let it go through and then kite. Like I'd roll away as a monk, let it drop off the skeleton, and then go back in. Or you can let it go off and you can stun the entire pack. Like I use leg sweep to stun every skeleton as the debuff goes out, and then I have a druid soothe it. So during the stun, they soothe it, and I never get the debuff at all.
Yes.
And then the third way is, as a prot warrior, if you spell reflect the first hit from the skeleton that has the debuff, then it'll reflect the damage onto the Death Speaker mob, not the skeleton, for whatever reason, and kill the Death Speaker very fast.
Yeah, so you want to reflect one melee and then have it soothed before it autos the next time, because the reflect will be consumed and it will then start applying it to you. So reflect into shockwave is a really good thing as a warrior, and then your healer can soothe during the shockwave.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, let's talk about when the Death Speaker's dead. Then is a really good time to pull onto Grotesque Horrors, these worms here, with just skeletons left. Worms are not too lethal, so it's pretty safe to just pull skeletons onto them and cleave everything down. Worms do have a cast that needs to be kicked, so you need to make sure that you have a kick assigned to every Death Bolt. You need like 3 melee kicks to keep this thing locked down, or again, you can use stuns or gouges or whatever to fill between the casts. Extremely easy mob to fight, though, I would say, compared to the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, these worms are great. Even on Sanguine, you can fight the worm and drop Sanguine pools around it because it has a huge hitbox. Like you can tank far away and still take the melees. Mm-hmm. And just kind of like drop Sanguine in a circle around the worm and then kill the worm last if you ever need to.
Yeah, one thing you'll note the group doing here is they were actually pulling Trash ahead of Kragmaw to wait for Lust before pulling Kragmaw. That is a strategy we still recommend to this day, actually, is never pull Kragmaw without Lust. Because it just saves so much time to Lust this boss because of the stupid tantrums. Okay, let's talk about Defilers. Defilers are kind of the last big mob to cover here. Hang on, I gotta reload the video, I think.
Yeah. So basically, the Defilers have 3 casts. They have Shadowbolt Volley, Wicked Curse, and Spirit Drain Totem. Shadowbolt Volley and Wicked Curse are the only 2 that I would say are pretty mandatory for kicks. Oh god, this is a teaming clip. Holy shit.
Yeah, this is a clip with a Death Speaker in as well, and you can see the Death Speaker is coming too. Yeah. But yeah, Defilers require 2 kicks each. They require a kick on Shadowbolt Volley and a kick on Withering Curse. So doing that is important. Otherwise, you're gonna wipe. That'll just kill you if you have a Tides in there. So you need to have a way to keep the tides out of that pack if you're pulling that tides pack, for instance. Outside of that, the Spirit Drain Totem cast, you have to generally let that through. If you have extra kicks, you can kick it, but otherwise you just let that through, and then you run away from the totems.
Yeah,
So our plan in this clip was to keep the Death Speaker blinded away from the tides while the tides is rooted the entire pull and kill the defilers first. And the blind broke, and all of us have been rotating CCs on this Death Speaker for like 30 seconds straight, not letting his Raise Dead go through, which is pretty insane that we actually never let it cast while using all 4 of our kicks on something else.
That tides, this is the most mandatory tides, I think, to deal with in any dungeon. If you choose to try and face tank this tides in that pull, even on a +10, you'll probably wipe. The combo of Withering Curse, free casting, and Shadowbolt Volley is going to one-shot you at pretty much any key level. So you need to have a plan for this tides if you're doing that pull. And then the nice thing is you get to pull it into the boss afterwards, and that is efficient.
I don't know how those mobs are stacked up. Like if you could potentially just like not even pull it.
You can ring, but you can't.
Yeah, it's tough, but you can separate it with the ring.
One thing is
no. I'm not referring to like ring separation. I'm referring to just like not pulling the pack at all.
Oh yes,
like
you can skip the pack,
boss.
but then you have to be really careful when you're clearing mushrooms on that side of the room.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is that like I don't know how the mobs are stacked. Like whenever there's only just the 2 defilers there, it's not as bad, but like with that teaming mob plus the additional tides, I don't know how close it actually is to the guys.
Do you want to hear something sick? That tides is actually in a different spot on Tides Week versus Void Week. They moved it closer to the pack, but only one of those weeks is it moved, and the other week it's further back still. So the position is different on Void Week versus Tides Week, and the ring is harder on one of those weeks than it is on the other week.
Thank you, Blizzard, so much.
Great game. Anyways, let's get to our final dungeon of the day here, which is the Motherlode. So the Motherlode is a dungeon where I think this is the hardest fortified dungeon relative to Tyrannical of any of the dungeons. Like I think this is the dungeon that you're happiest on Tyrannical compared to all the others. Let's talk about the trash at the start of the dungeon. How do we normally pull the start of the dungeon, just generally, Trell?
Well, this first area has a lot of refreshment vendors, and so that's a big no-no. Refreshment vendors kind of limit how big you can pull. You don't really want more than 1 at a time, especially on Fortified. They take too long to kill, and they require many, many stops. So you see group Shroud like we just did to the next area and just lust one of the Peacekeeper pulls out here where there's less vendors. I don't think there's even a vendor in any of these first few pulls.
Yeah, this is a 0 vendor pull that you're on right now. This is 2 Peacekeepers, a Jockey, an Assassin, and a Thug. Which is not 0. Like it's a good pull to lust. There's a lot going on here, but it's definitely survivable. There are the main thing to keep in mind if you're doing this place is you want as many Peacekeepers as possible. Peacekeepers are extremely efficient count, so you need to let as many pilots go through as you can. There are ways to even get extra pilots throughout the dungeon. With Death Grip, Ring of Peace, or whatever, you can displace extra jockeys into Peacekeepers that they would otherwise not pilot. Depending on your comp, there are a lot of weird ways to do that, and that will get you a lot of extra count because Peacekeepers are worth 12 count each, and you get the 4 count from the jockey inside as long as you tagged it first. So do make sure that you tag all the jockeys before they finish their pilot cast as well.
And something that you can actually see here, if you're actually watching the video, is that they grabbed the patrol, like at the very top of the patrol, to where one of the mech jockeys would actually run and try to pilot that Peacekeeper. Because the Peacekeeper robots do give 12 count, they're probably your main source of count for the first like half of the instance.
Yes, the main thing to do is to get as many Peacekeepers as you can. And you can see here, like, pulling into another one. Again, tagging the mech jockey, very valuable thing to do. Outside of Peacekeepers, there are a lot of mobs with important abilities here. Hired Assassins require a kick on their Toxic Blades, and they require a stop, not a kick, of some kind on their Hail of Flechettes. Hail of Flechettes can be stopped with gouges, stuns. It can be stopped with a knock, but to knock it, you have to actually let the first tick go through. So generally, that's not what you want to do. Because if you try and knock it while it's winding up, it will continue the wind up. Knocks only stop once it started actually doing the damage part. So that's fun interaction.
Yep.
Assassin, again, 1 Outlaw Rogue can handle. Gouge can get pretty much every cast, and if it happens to go a little early or do a weird spell queue, you can blind or whatever. Otherwise, you'll need other people on them. Fire Mage really good for these again as well. Even if you're pulling multiple assassins, they're often synced up, and you can Dragon's Breath all of them, or Blinding Light, all those sorts of effects. AoE stuns are good. You gotta be careful with AoE stuns because sometimes mobs get DR'd on stun, and you really don't want to like try and stun an assassin and not have a stun for it, and then let either of its casts go through. So using incapacitates or whatever on them is really nice.
The only other cast I can really think of is the Thug has an Enrage cast that can be soothed off. It's probably one of the lowest priority for casts of the whole entire part of this instance.
Yeah. Thugs are something you kick if you have free kicks, but they are not. It's not a kick you assign if there are other things going on. Like if you're pulling a refreshment vendor, you kick all of those casts before kicking any thugs. Refreshment vendors are interesting. They have an ice spritzer cast, which is a kick, and they have a refreshing beverage or whatever that you can stop with a gouge or whatever. Yeah, and that has a nice long cast time, so you want to let it get like 3 or 4 seconds into that cast, and then you interrupt it with a stun or whatever, and that'll lock them down for a really nice long amount of time.
Yeah. Okay. So general rule of thumb for this part of the instance is no more than 2 thugs. 3 thugs is normally pretty dangerous. Sometimes you can get away with 3 thugs if you're really coordinated. Like I think Trell's about to pull 3 thugs here. So if you're like super coordinated, you can get away with 3 thugs. Normally not advised. More than 2 assassins is also pretty much a death sentence. 2 assassins is also pretty scary, but also manageable if you're fairly coordinated.
Yeah, you can see here they've even blinded a thug, so they're only fighting 2. So good job there.
One refreshment vendor.
The charges.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 1 refreshment vendor and 1 mech jockey. Like so basically, if a mech jockey doesn't run and pilot a peacekeeper, you can only have 1 mech jockey or 1 refreshment vendor active at a time.
Yeah, so mech jockeys don't actually do they do a cast, but it's a dodgeable ground effect. But the big problem with mech jockeys is that they randomly grease gun people. Grease gun is something that you may not be aware of if you do this on lower keys. But grease gun they just randomly shoot people for like millions of damage. Not millions, but it's invisible. There's no way to see that they're casting it, except people are randomly going to die in your group. So that's why mech jockeys are really bad to fight more than one of at once.
For soothe priority for like the enrage effect, like the affix. Generally, soothe priority is going to go mech jockey, then refreshment vendor, and then peacekeeper, then thug, and then assassin.
Mm-hmm.
But if the thug has double enrage, then you should like soothe that like insta because you're actually just gonna go.
Question here in chat about how to do this place on bolstering.
You don't.
You don't is a good answer. Motherlode is a dungeon that basically I don't do on sanguine or bolstering. It's really hard with either of those. The other option is, you just hard prior damage peacekeepers. I think you still do peacekeepers if you're doing bolstering. It's just, you have to be really careful with your priority damage.
You gotta watch out for the pulls with the laborers on bolstering. They will bolster things extremely fast because they have like a fifth of the health of a peacekeeper or something like that.
Where are the melee supposed to stand next to these peacekeepers to avoid getting cleaved?
All right, so that's an important part. So throughout all of this clip that we just played, you'll see me kiting back and forth, and then when I'm not kiting, I'm standing exactly opposite of my melee DPS to not cleave them with the charge claw. I think if they get cleaved by 2 charge claws, they just die on this difficulty.
Yes,
and even if I get hit by 2 charge claws at the same time, I die as well. To be honest, as the tank.
The way the cleave works is it's based off the tank. It's sourced off the tank, so you need to not stand within 5 yards of the tank. And if somebody else is standing within 5 yards of the tank, you need to not stand within 5 yards of them because it'll chain through to you as well. It's a chain lightning. So that's why Trell is marked with an X here, is so that you don't stand on top of him. Let's talk about knocking jockeys into peacekeepers here, because we talked a little bit about this earlier. This is one of the most common ones. These 2 jockeys here, getting one of them into this peacekeeper is really valuable. So the way that you can do that is with Ring of Peace is a really easy way. Stealth and Knockbelt also works, or Death Grip. You just ring it, and then as long as you ring it so that one jockey gets closer to the other peacekeeper, then you can tag it and it will go into that one, and that's really helpful. Then you get an extra peacekeeper piloted, and that's a lot of extra count.
Yeah, it's definitely the play. Is get as many peacekeepers as you can. And also, what I was going to say about kiting these peacekeepers is what I meant was I can't ever take 2 charge claws at once unless I have a CD up. Like here, I have dampen, so I'm getting through it on pull while tanking all the charge claws for a few seconds. But after this, I'll never take a charge claw again if I can help it, because they do so much damage. And so as soon as these shields are over, I'm out. Like I stay here for a little bit because of trees, but then I'm out of there.
Yeah, build a little bit of threat. Again, really nice to have rogues and stuff so that your threat is less of an issue. This is a lot harder on Skittish Week also. But yeah, you just don't want to get attacked by Peacekeepers while they have the Charge Claw up. That is very, very deadly. I've seen people go from 100 to 0 if they get meleeed by 2 Peacekeepers at the same time with Charge Claw up. That is something that can happen.
And it's gonna be worse and worse next season as it scales harder and harder. So you just gotta be really aware of Charge Claw and how to kite these pulls as a tank. They're very unique on how to do them correctly. I wouldn't worry about like stacking them up for your group's damage unless they're about to shield. Like if you pull them all at the same time, they generally cast their energy shield at the same time later in the pull, like these two are doing right now. So you can kind of get the feel for when they're going to do that and then keep them up still for a few seconds. Let them AoE everything down for a little bit and then kite again.
Ooh. Man, that was close there. But yeah, you get them all nice and energy shielding. Ideally, you want them to be energy shielding facing the same direction as well, because then they'll get killed by them. Like you won't have to have people like get in the middle of them to damage all of them. But yeah, this is a very spooky pull. 3 Peacekeepers at the same time, very scary for a tank. They need to kite very aggressively here. Don't try and face tank these, for like except for when they're energy shielding or whatever and not attacking. And that's when you can go generate threat on them.
Yeah, and we have like 3 or 4 clips of knocking mech jockeys into Peacekeepers inside of the dock too, in case if you guys want to look at that. For some reason.
There's even a sick death grip you can do where you death grip a jockey next to a house and then it runs around inside the house and pilots it. We don't have a clip of that for this show, but if you're playing with a Death Knight, you can get even more Peacekeepers than before, which is really good.
One thing to note about that is when you knock a mech jockey, you want to make sure to knock it onto level ground. Because there's a bug in the game where if you knock it onto uneven ground, they'll attempt to get into the Peacekeeper and then fail and then run at you anyway.
It's like when you slip trying to get into your car in the morning because there's snow or whatever on the ground. That's what happens to jockeys if you grip them onto uneven terrain. Then they'll just...
Tretnus, don't you live in California?
Yeah, man. So it would be really bad if there was snow here. I wouldn't know what to do. Like these jockeys. Okay. Let's move on to after the coin operated crowd pummeler area. So we have earth shapers and mine rats in this area and sappers. What's important with these, Trell? The mobs after coin operated crowd pummeler.
So let me preface that with there's many mobs in Battle for Azeroth that have a new tank mechanic where they will hit either the closest target to them, which is meant to be the tank, or they'll hit the highest threat. Well, actually, they'll just always hit the closest target, right? And that's the mechanic they introduced to prevent kiting. So as soon as I run out of the group, they're going to cast their instant cast magic damage Earthshock and the throw rock at the nearest player. And melee DPS have to be aware of this because tanks have to kite quite often, especially if they're not fully geared or if they're doing a necrotic dungeon, and be ready for tools to defend themselves against that. So both the Earthshapers and the Mine Rats in this bowl are very dangerous. They cast Throw Rock and Earthshock at random at the tank, and you can stop the Throw Rocks, but the Earthshocks are completely instant cast and invisible unless you know what's going on.
It's actually just on nearest player. It's not even relative to whether the tank's in melee or not. It's just on nearest player. So, like your rogue or your demon hunter could actually just like tank every single one if they're going to get closer to the Earthshapers than you are.
Yeah. So you have to be really careful of those Throw Rocks from the Mine Rats and the Earthshocks. Those are very, very deadly. Sappers, by contrast, are extremely easy. Sappers don't do anything, basically. They throw bombs.
Yes, we like sappers.
They throw bombs that you can easily dodge, and the bombs aren't even lethal. When they get low on health, they cast Final Blast. That is lethal, and then they throw a bunch of bombs. So that is scary. But one thing that people don't know about is 2 extra sappers that are very easy to pull by themselves. So here's footage of this. After you pull the first couple Earthshaper packs, you can run around and grab these 2 sappers without pulling any of the extractors or Earthshapers in the area. And these are 2 free count pieces to add to this pull. That's a good way to get extra mob count in your run. So we recommend pulling those 2 Wanton Sappers over on the side there. Cannot overstate how good it is to fight them. Extractors, by contrast, and Shale Biters and Taskmaster Akari, those are not things that you generally want to pull, right?
Yeah, Shale Biters actually are actually probably the most dangerous for your tank inside the whole entire game. They actually have a cast, and it will, if it goes off, it will just like insta kill.
Yeah, Shale Spit.
So stupid.
If you're playing with a prot warrior, they can like run in and reflect all 3 and just one shot all the shale biters. But otherwise, yeah, it does huge amounts of magic damage to your tank.
Yeah, you can see my health just dipping so low in this pull, and it's because of the Earth Shocks. You can't tell that's what's happening. It looks like just melees, but The Earthshocks are what are chunking me because the magic damage goes straight through my mitigation.
It's from the Earthshapers. Again, Earthshock, Grease Gun, Throw Rock to a lesser extent are just abilities that do huge damage and don't have much telegraph. Grease Gun and Earthshock are the huge offenders. There's not even like a cast time on them. That's
actually hysterical. You're not breaking your shield from Edict. You literally have like this full shield from Edict, and you're just getting clapped.
Yeah, Edict is at least for Brewmaster, it's still getting like he's still getting some value on those edicts against magic damage because it does stop the staggered portion of the magic damage, but that's only like 30% of the incoming damage.
Yeah, it's definitely not full value, but it helps.
Yeah.
That's my biggest gripe about BFA mobs, is that they have all these weird closest target instant cast mechanics, and they're meant to prevent kiting, but they cause a lot of problems with just like regular strategies.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gale Shear and Shrine is a big example.
So I mean, dude, even the mech jockey with the grease gun is just like another example. It's just like, what? Like, why is this an ability that I can't see?
So after this, we're usually it's good to pull Azrock with more than 80% count, right? That's a good number. Like even 90% count or 100% count are viable numbers to pull Azrock with. If you're much below that, you're gonna have a bad time, I'd say, because the easiest trash is at the start of the dungeon, not at the end. After Azrock, first of all, there's an opportunity for your tank to Hearth, and for anybody else who wants to Hearth, and switch to an anti-magic damage / good at single target damage build. Brewmasters tends to not need this, but Prot Warriors often will benefit from doing this. And DPS classes can, like, you know, a rogue can go out and take more single target talents. Many specs can do this. So hearthing out to like the Hosen Throne if you're Horde, or just that little place next to the Motherlode port if you're Alliance, is a very good strategy for this place. If one person in your group is doing it, other people in your group should probably do it too. Otherwise, nobody should do it. It should be 0 or multiple people hearthing out generally, because you have to wait. As long as one person's doing it, you have to wait the same amount of time as multiple people doing it. After that, we get the R&D wing. Tettles, what's going on in the R&D wing?
Nothing. Skip that shit.
Yes, we always skip R&D wing.
Well, lots of things are going on, but they hurt way too much.
Yes, the Mastermind hurts entirely too much. The Weapons Tester is really, really frustrating. And then you have, what is that mod? Is the Weapons Tester the one that also like will transmorph you to goop?
That's not the Weapons Tester. It's one of the other ones, but yeah, that's not good.
Yeah. All right. Anyways, they're all really bad. You're not pulling any of those guys.
Yes.
I think the problem with it is that if you ever want, even pulling like 3 mobs in that area requires so many kicks and interrupts and cooldowns to survive their casts that they're just so inefficient. Like, you can't double pull in that area. If you do, you're gonna die. Skip it.
Okay. We'll show those skips next week. That's going to be the next week's episode is about skips. So we're not going to talk too much about the R&D wing right now. We'll talk about skipping it next. Let's talk about what happens after we kill Rixa, because then we have these war machines and technicians and stuff. And that is in another area where you can get some pretty good count. War machines also worth 12 count each, so pretty good value there. Technicians and specialists also fairly easy mobs to deal with. Trell, what are the important abilities in these sorts of pulls after here?
So I'm kicking the artillery barrage and one of the specialists. Is that what they're called?
Yes, that's an important kick.
Yes.
Yeah.
They have like a 15-second roughly cooldown on their artillery barrage that you can kick, or you can sweep or ring or stop it in some other way, and they won't recast. Those kinds of mobs. Also, the war machine casts a channeled tank combo. Basically, it's called Charge Shot. You got to make sure you're like facing toward it and having something up ready for it. Like, it does do a good deal of damage, but it's not quite as dangerous as some other mobs in Motherlode. Can
you like roll out and Zenmed it also, or would it break Zenmed?
I think it breaks Zenmed, but that's a good question. I haven't tested that in a while.
Yeah.
One thing to know about these is you actually cannot pull multiple war machines at the same time. They're currently bugged to where if you pull a second one and he attempts to charge shot the tank while the first one's also doing that, he'll have to pick someone else instead because he like is unable to pick the same target.
There is a world where you desync. Yeah, there's a world where you desync the two of them and you could just like pull them at like really specific times, but I think it's definitely just not worth.
Yeah, that is very big spooky to try and run that. The orange swirlies on the ground are just a ground effect in this area, but if an ordnance specialist gets an artillery barrage through, there will be exactly the same looking orange swirlies that fire like twice as fast and you need to run as soon as that cast goes through. I've been in pretty much any group I've been in where an artillery barrage goes through, people die to it because they just expect that they have a long time to run out of that orange circle, and you don't. If the artillery barrage cast goes through, you need to run immediately.
Yeah, it insta kills you, but I guess the benefit is that you're like right next to the checkpoint here, anyways.
Yeah, so even if you have deaths here, it's not costly as long as it's not like the tank.
Yeah, these are new pulls in season 3. They've been nerfed a couple times and finally able to be pulled with confidence. And the reason why people are doing it now is because these war machines summon mines every like 10 seconds or so. I don't remember the exact timer, but
so it's
the
got
mines,
like 20 something.
Okay, yeah, 20 seconds, and the mines give you count. Like each mine that is spawned gives you one more enemy forces count.
Yeah, so you can kind of farm these mobs. Yeah, you farm some count off the war machines.
Yes, this is the bomb factory.
Yeah, you guys remember? You guys remember the MDI when Tettles flamed Trell for going to the end of the dungeon first? That's going to be the new meta at the end of the expansion. It's going to be just you run to the end of the dungeon, you get the war machine, and you just keep in combat with it the whole time, farming the mines it spawns. And you
so something that Trell just did right there is he actually pulled that technician that's really off to the side, and then he pulled it through, making sure that you're not pulling the Sky Scorcher, because the Sky Scorcher is by far the most dangerous mob here.
Does the same with the specialist also. Yeah, so technicians and Sky and specialists are easy to kill. Sky Scorchers not. Sky Scorchers aren't CCable. They do big damage. So you really don't want to fight Sky Scorchers. You want to pull as much of the other stuff as you can. And you can see that's where this group is getting their last 20% of the dungeon.
A good note for technicians is that the overcharge, if it goes on the war machine, mages can actually spell steal it off and do significantly more damage.
Huge. Yeah, it's like a double bloodlust or something for them. So that is good. So don't kick overcharge with a mage in the group. Yep. Okay. I think that is about it for our main topic this week. Let's get into our questions and answers. I guess I'll just keep this video running in the background while we do Q&A, because we can't. Our faces are still not going to show because Discord was down when we started this stupid episode. One quick Q&A I want to get to in chat is somebody asked what situations would a Sin Rogue use double follies, and then somebody replied they can't. Sin Rogues can only use double daggers. It is actually true that Sin Rogues can play 1 or 2 follies. If you play 1 folly, you can't use Mutilate. And if you play 2 follies, you can't use Toxic Blade either. But the folly proc will do a lot of damage. So in AoE, it can actually be more damage to play follies and not Mutilate and just only use Fan of Knives.
All right, so you just do the first pull of Tol Dagor with double folly.
Yes.
You just spam Fan.
Unironically, like it's good. If you're playing first pull of Tol Dagor as Assassination, then you're going to switch back to Outlaw. You should play that with double folly. It's worth doing. But outside of that, no, it's generally a meme, and you should probably use daggers so that you can cast your stupid Mutilates. But it's not that bad. It's not that bad to play follies, and it is really good in big AoE. Okay, next question comes from @SaneTweet, who asks, which of the mobs in Tol Dagor trigger what on death affixes under which conditions? And when do they give count and when not? Somehow that key never lands on 100%.
That's a good question. I think they're talking about primarily the mobs that spawn in the jail cells in Jess Hallis's room. And depending on when you pull them or how they spawned, it depends on whether they give count or do certain affixes. Like, if you pull them before the boss, they will always give count. Like, you can pull them into the boss, but as long as you open the cage and then pull the boss, that's how you get the count from them.
Yes.
Yeah, and they do necrotic 100% of the time, though, even if they are spawned, right?
Yeah, they'll always do necrotic,
yeah.
And they will only do on-death affixes or give count if you pull them before engaging the boss. Otherwise, they will do neither of those things. So usually these days, we like to pull them before the boss because it's good count. Okay. In chat, we have JD Brew who asks, in my MDT routes in Motherlode, I talk about tagging a mob the second it spawns from a mech. Can I explain that? That's not actually me. That's a new exclamation point thing in Motherlode. Like, all of the MDT now just explains how those mobs work by default. But basically, the start of Motherlode, some of the Peacekeepers are already piloted. So it's impossible to tag the jockey that's inside it before it pilots the Peacekeeper. But it is possible to tag the jockey as the Peacekeeper dies. You get a very, very small window to do it. I don't actually include it in my routes. I never assume that those are going to get tagged. But if you're playing, one thing that does tag it like automatically is an Unholy Death Knight. If they have Festering Wounds on the Peacekeeper when it dies, and they're playing the Bursting Sores talent, that will always hit the back jockeys. So if you're playing an Unholy Death Knight, you get extra count from those.
I don't think anybody actually just like anticipates you actually get the 4 count from the mech jockey for that. That seems like a really good way to just like mess up your count.
It's
in
not.
MDI, that was the only time we did. That's where we discovered it too, and we told Naga about it.
Again, it's an Unholy Death Knight thing that makes it reliable, I'd say.
Yeah, I wouldn't even worry about trying to get those mech jockeys.
Yeah, like
for the win.
Blade Flurry and RJW can tag it, but it's just so.
You have to get lucky.
inconsistent
You have to get lucky to have a damage instance go out in that second while they're taggable. Otherwise, it won't.
Yeah, it's because it's not a second. It's like literally just a millisecond.
It's like one server tick or something, yeah, where the jockey's alive but the Peacekeeper isn't, and then the Peacekeeper and then the jockey gets killed. So, okay, next question is from Rylehira in Discord. Can you include what to do in Tol Dagor if you don't have a rogue for the cannons? And yes, I know at Trell, or at Trell will tell me to make friends with a rogue again, but until then...
Make friends with the moon. Make friends with the moonkin because you need trees.
Trees is good.
Well, I think Riley is a hunter player, and she was basing this off of her own class.
Yeah.
So, I mean, other classes do have similar things to rogues. I guess hunter is actually the only example, but hunters do have a misdirect ability, but it only lasts 8 seconds in the cannon. Whereas rogues have the bug tricks of the trade, which lasts 30 seconds. So it's kind of a handicapped tricks of the trade, but you can still make it work. Like I think if you did the timing right, you could cast misdirect, hop in the cannon, and probably fire 3 shots before your tricks runs out. And then that should be enough threat to fire 2 more shots and not get threat, in my opinion. But it has to be very well timed with a practice group, probably.
Yeah, I mean, you can feign off the threat after as well, so you can like shoot one that gets you threat and then jump out and feign.
I don't know. I don't know if I would actually even want the hunter shooting the cannon there. I think I would literally just rather take anybody else shooting the cannon and have the hunter for the binding shot.
Yeah, I mean, the hunter can binding and then
well.
jump in their cannon, or they can jump out, binding, jump back in. Like,
True.
Those are also options, but
yeah,
it's hard. I don't know. They're like doing it without a rogue is 20 times harder than doing it with a rogue. Okay, in Discord we also have a question from Zira who asks, my M+ group struggles a bit with the trash in the first quarter of Motherlode. We tend to either pull it very slowly or die. Is managing this just a matter of practice? Yes. It is a matter of practice. Also, all the things we said earlier are basically the tips for handling that as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Those rules for what mobs you can pull together and which ones you can't.
I would recommend going and looking at other people's VODs in terms of and like just trying to understand why they're pulling what mobs together, and really just trying to understand like why they're doing what they're doing. A lot of the time is the most critical element to that, because like what you said, it's really easy to overpull inside of Motherlode and you pull double refreshment vendor, you're just gonna fucking instantly die. I don't really know what to do about that. If you mess up piloting a Peacekeeper and you have double mech jockey, your melee are probably going to hate you and scream the whole entire run.
Yeah, multiple mech jockeys at once I think is something that people are not aware of as being lethal, but is extremely lethal. So don't do those. And
I mean, even double assassin can get kind of spicy if you don't have.
If you watch this
like,
video,
double outlaw.
Trell actually doesn't pull the double assassin pack because like Morning's playing assassin. They can't do that pack really safely, so they just completely avoid assassin thug that many groups choose to pull on that side. So adapting based on your group comp is really important. Which mobs you can handle.
A lot of like super high coordinated groups, they'll have like a demon hunter and an outlaw rogue, like a havoc demon hunter and an outlaw rogue. The havoc demon hunter can actually do like 2 or 3 stops on the assassin. So normally you'll mark that one assassin that the havoc DH is assigned to, and you'll just like nuke that one down. The outlaw rogue can just have infinite stops on their assassin, so it doesn't matter as much. You can just kind of let that one sit in limbo for forever. But the one that's assigned to the demon hunter, you can mark it, and you're just like, yeah, kill this assassin, and we're good to go on this pull.
All right, that about does it here for our question and answer segment. Thanks everybody for watching and everybody for listening. Again, our YouTube video for this is going to be a little bit scuffed, and our audio has all been a little bit sketchy today, but we wanted to make the show for you all anyways and not like cancel it.
And shout out to Blizzard Voice.
Yeah, shout out to Blizzard Voice. Apparently, the same issue that was causing Discord to suck have been the problems with YouTube videos loading badly during this episode, also because it's all like the Google servers. So that's been catastrophic. But we've gotten through it. Hopefully, you guys still learned something. We'll try to have Discord be up next time and have a better plan. We'll try very hard. We'll do everything in our power to help fix Discord. All right, but that's going to be the end for this week's episode. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Later,
Thanks, guys.